everybody.
Friday. And you know what that means? We're having happy hour. So we have Joye Jackson in the salon today.
Yes.
First, before we get started, let's kick off our happy hour with a little clink, clink, a little toast. Clink, 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 all around.
Joye, what does your mug say?
It says, I survived another meeting that should have been an email.
Exactly.
To everyone who has survived a meeting today that could have been an email.
Yes, exactly. Well, we want to welcome everyone into the salon. Take a seat, grab your drinks. This is going to be a live on our Facebook page, but it's also going to be available for our audience to listen to in the car, at work, on our podcast, on all podcast stations. So we definitely want to welcome our audience, and we're going to be talking about leadership today. Leadership and how to leave a legacy with your leadership. So we could think of no one else to bring it to the salon to discuss this topic with than our friend and sister, Joye Jackson. Speaking of Joy, I love it. So creative, and you just smile when you say it. So, you know, we've known Joye for so long, over 20 years now. And over 20 years. So we're basically blood sisters, okay? Yes. Yes, so we know Joye personally, but we want to give her an opportunity to introduce herself, tell you guys a little bit about her and her business, and then we're going to jump into our topic that we want to discuss. So I'm sending it over to you, Joye.
All right. Well, good evening. Happy Friday. We made it to the end of the week. So I think that in and of itself is a great thing, given everything we're going through. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about Speaking of Joye. Speaking of Joye is a newer company that is designed to help people be the best at what they want to be. So a lot of times people talk about leadership, they talk about development, they talk about just being encouraged and motivated. So Speaking of Joye offers services in all of those areas. We do one-on-one coaching, we do leadership development and workshops. We also offer an opportunity to design content. So one of our specialties is content development. So we design content, we do diversity training, and we're really about the journey. So we recognize that leadership is not a destination. It's really a journey and a process. So our goal is to walk with you through the journey. So everyone's definition of leadership or development is different. So our goal is to help you figure out that definition and then walk with you through resources, through opportunities, through development to get to where you want to be.
That is yes. And when you're talking about people having their own definition of leadership, what's your personal definition of what leadership is? What is yours?
That's a good question. I believe leadership is really about influence and responsibility. I think a lot of people equate leadership with a title. So I now have been promoted to a position. So now I'm considered a leader. But I really believe that leadership is really about who you impact and who you influence, and then what your responsibility is to them, not just to the people, but to the development of that person, to the organization. So it's really all encompassing. It's not really just one specific definition. And then you can look up tons of definitions, but I really think it's about development, growth, and it's about your influence.
Great.
Yes.
So what are some attributes of a good leader in your opinion, Joye?
So, that's a good question, because a lot of times people talk about, servant leadership and all these different things. I really think a good leader is someone who doesn't forget that at one point they weren't. And I think that a lot of times when you're a leader, you get caught up in being a leader, that you forget that at one point you were an employee or someone who wanted more knowledge or someone who wanted more information. So an attribute of a leader is somebody who doesn't really forget where they've come from. I think another attribute of a leader is someone who's truly supportive. You have to get to know the people you're working with. You have to get to know the type of people that you have surrounding you, because every person needs something different. And if you're not careful, you will try to develop one leadership tactic, one attribute, and think that works for everybody. But a true leader understands and is mindful of the people that they come in contact with and the people around them, so that they're able to cater their style, their communication, their engagement to each person's individual needs and desires. So I think it's about mindfulness. I think it's about integrity. I think it's about not asking people to do anything that you're not willing to do. Yes. I think that the idea of rolling up your sleeves sounds good when you're interviewing, because everybody will say, oh, I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and do the work. But the truth of the matter is, when people get to certain positions or get in certain roles, they forget how to do the work, or that the work is necessary. So they expect others to do it. So I think it's a level of humbleness that's necessary. And I could go on and on. I got a ton of attributes. And I will tell you, I'm not the whole 7 habits of a highly. I am about understanding who you are and what you have to offer, and then bringing and leveraging those skills so that you can be better for everyone else, and that you can help other people reach their goals. So that's what I would call leadership.
Well, you bring
like we're gonna be like. And I would say, real quick, Carla, I feel like we're gonna be like Jada Pinkett Smith, like that part the whole time while Joye is speaking, because she is gonna come with, point after point, and it's so relevant. So I'm just appreciating your answers already, Joye. I just had to put that in.
Thank you.
Well, you happen to mention servant leadership in your answer now, and that was one of our questions for you. Is everybody is on this servant leadership train. Like, if you say that, people are going to think, oh, they're a good leader because they believe in servant leadership. I've experienced some different kind of leaders that believe in servant leadership, but are the opposite.
Absolutely.
So can you tell us what your thoughts are on servant leadership and what that means, and if it's a fad or if it's something really people should really invest time into doing?
Right. I think it is, in HR, in the business world, there are certain words that become buzzwords, and the sectors change over time. So right now, of course, servant leadership is one, diversity is another. And as time goes, you'll find that these things, like at one point it was emotional intelligence and the whole EQ. Yeah. We're riding a wave of different things. And what we've identified now is that leaders have become leaders, but they forget that they're supposed to be servants. So we've thrown in the servant leadership idea, which really means, okay, as a leader, my job is to serve. But most people don't understand what serving really means. And people think that serving is, okay, I can do your job. I'm really nice to you. I ask you how your day was. But when you think about what a servant is, it's somebody who's willing to sacrifice everything that they have for the betterment of somebody else. And if you're not willing to sacrifice for your team or for the people who work with you or for you, you can't really take on the mindset of servant. I mean, if you want to look at the whole concept of servant leadership, a lot of people equate it to what Jesus did for his disciples, of what he did for the world. And how many of us are willing to wash the feet of the people who work with us? And that's symbolic, but how many of us are really willing to give up our title, our position, to say, I'm just like you. And although I have the title, the money, the position, the acronyms behind my name, it's more important that I give myself to you. And I'm not about who I am. I'm not about what I'm coming from. I'm really about, if I want you to be better, I've got to invest. I've got to give. And giving is not something that a lot of people are comfortable doing, or we'll give, but we won't give out of lack. We'll give enough to say, oh, I did that check. I had a one-on-one check. You know, I asked my people how their day was, check. I made sure that we spent time, doing team development, check. But ultimately, we haven't really spent time saying, what is it that the people that I work with need? And how do I meet that need, even if it means that I give of myself and I'm without so that somebody else can be greater? And most people aren't really comfortable with that. So for me, servant leadership is really about that. How do I sacrifice so that those around me feel uplifted? And they get the credit, if they get the promotion, if they get those things, I'm okay with that because I've invested in them. So that's what I would say. And most people, depends on how they feel about that. So,
Okay, that's a good segue, because Carla and I, our last 2 podcasts, the one before last, we talked about Ellen and how she didn't know, she was so far removed from her organization and her employees, she didn't know that it was a toxic environment, right? And then we did another episode, our last episode that we posted last Wednesday was about mediocrity, right? How it is just running rampant and people are mediocre. And some people are mediocre and they don't know it. And then some people are mediocre and they just don't care. They are a byproduct of privilege. So Carla and I talk about this a lot, where how do so many leaders think they're good, but in reality, they're not? Why is that? Because one, an example of that is Black people now are saying, hey, we're speaking up. There's been a problem across the nation in many businesses, right? And the leaders are like, really? I didn't know. So hey, how did they not know?
So I've been sitting in seats. My most recent position was as an executive. I sat at the boardroom table, and it's very common for leaders to get to a point where they feel that they're at a point where they're disengaged. And I don't think that, I would assume that most leaders don't intend to get there, but I think they get to a point where they're so busy being executives and being the chief this or the VP of this, that they forget, like I said, how they got there. And so as a result, when the things around them are falling apart, they have no idea that it's happening. So I believe a lot of them are really shocked, like, oh my God, I had no idea this was happening. And I blame them for not being engaged in what's happening in their organization. But I also blame the people who are sitting next to them, who are right alongside them, who are not saying, hey, wait a minute. Okay, Mr. CEO or Miss CEO, you may not know, but there are enough of us here who are experiencing this day to day who say, wait a minute, things aren't well. I think what happens is we've also taught a lot of people in organizations to be complacent. Right. Because we also, dare I say, put people in the fear of retaliation or jeopardizing their job. So they won't speak up. They won't say anything. And as leaders, it's important to encourage people that, like I'm teaching my children, if you tell me the truth, then we can work through it. It's when you don't tell me that I don't know and I can't protect you or help you. And so I think as leaders, that's what we've got to get to. We've got to get to a point where we really, and we have to say it and we have to mean it. So we have to be okay with hearing, I'm not doing a good job as a leader, or people in my organization or people who are around me are unhappy because they're the ones doing the work. I'm the pretty picture on the internet. I'm the pretty picture on the website, but I'm not the one that's engaging with the public. So when the people who are engaging with the public have a concern, it's my responsibility as the leader, if I'm the head, because my mama used to say, if the head ain't right, the rest of the stuff ain't gonna be right. So if you take that mindset, then okay, as the leader, if the things are bubbling up to me, then I need to be aware of that. And then as the leader, if nothing's bubbling up to me, I need to be concerned about that too, because there should be no organization, nowhere in the world where everybody's 100% happy. And if you believe that, you're not doing anything by way of leadership.
Right. My thing is, I've seen a lot of leaders get promoted and they automatically get this air about them.
Absolutely.
Like, I can do a TED talk now. Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't even want to do performance reviews, or you don't even have one-on-ones and communicate with your team. So I don't understand how you're at a leadership quarterly meeting and you're giving a speech on leadership. That I don't understand. There's some gaps. There's some gaps, and you need to work on that. What are some major gaps that you've observed over the last few years that have been trending across leadership in corporate America?
I think one of them is a lack of vulnerability. I think as leaders, it's okay to say, I don't know.
Yes.
But as you get promoted, you get this mindset that I'm promoted because I've done the job well, which is what people have said. I've done the job well. So for me, I'm promoted to this role because I did a good job. Well, the truth is you may have done a good job in this area, but when you start talking about being a leader and you talk about influence and responsibility, it's so much bigger than that. So the fact that you're able to manage a service line or a department or a group of people doesn't mean you're really a leader. It means you're a good manager and you've been an effective manager. So I think it's a matter of saying, okay, now I'm in this role. I may not truly know all the things I need to know. So I'm going to find the resources. I'm going to find the help. I'm going to find the coach. I'm going to find the opportunity to be developed. So I think vulnerability is one. I think another one that is really communication. Let's be clear. Everybody can talk. We do it well. We talk. But communicating is an art. It's about sending a message. It's about the receiver receiving the message. It's about understanding the noise and the feedback that happens in between. So just because I've communicated something to you, doesn't necessarily mean that I have been effective in my communication. So if I said it and you didn't take it, or your experience changed what you thought about it, or your mindset, or the last time we had this conversation, there are a lot of things, or filters and things that come in play when we communicate. So I think people don't recognize, and I study communication. Communication is art. It is not just I say it, you not, like y'all are nodding right now. But there could be 15 other conversations going on in your head right now. It could be, oh my gosh, it's Friday, 6/16. I wonder what the kids are doing. Did we eat? Okay, did somebody turn off the oven? I mean, all of those things are happening that's creating discord within what you're hearing. And so what you're hearing may not even be what I'm really trying to convey. And then I may be moving my hands too much. So that's distracting. So there are a ton of things that can occur that can miscommunicate, even with my perfect best communication. So I think people, especially leaders, need to understand the art of communication. So I think vulnerability, I think a lack of communication, I think a lack of transparency.
Yes.
I think you just have to, listen, I'm good at what I do. I think I'm pretty good, but I don't have it all together. I am not the greatest. Some days are not good days for me. And I don't need to be around nobody when those are not good days. So even if I have to go into the office, I shouldn't go into the office angry. I need to say, hey, listen, I just need a few minutes.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not my best self, I'm damaging relationships. I'm damaging
Absolutely.
I'm damaging so many things. So I think to be transparent and to say, you know what? I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't have an answer. But I tell you what, let's work on it together. I'm going to do some research. You do some research. We'll come up with the best solution. And I think that's what people need to know. It's leadership is not easy, but it works better when you're authentic.
Yes.
When you're true, when you're honest, when you're vulnerable, when you recognize that you're a human being above everything else. So the position means nothing, because we all wake up, we all drive in, we all have life, so we're just human beings, and we just happen to have a responsibility that may be different than someone else.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just like, wow.
Well, you mentioned, vulnerability and transparency. I know you've been in leadership for numerous years. What are some of the fumbles that you made when you first got into leadership?
Okay. Hold on. One of my biggest mistakes was not recognizing that I deserved to be in the seat.
Whoa.
I spent a lot of time discounting myself and saying, because in my last job, I was promoted over 6 years from training manager to chief strategy officer. And it's easy to look around and say, you know what? Ooh, that was really cool. I went from this position, this position, this position. But the self-doubt and the talk will have you second guessing every decision, every opportunity. So I spent a lot of time in self-doubt, just kind of saying, do I deserve to be here? Am I capable of doing the job? And then it doesn't help when you have 2 or 3 people who are intimidated by your position, by your status, by your popularity or relationships, by your skin color, by your, gender. When they start to project their insecurities on you, that makes it harder for you to feel comfortable in the seat. So I spent a lot of time self-doubt and wondering if I was good enough to be in the seat. And then I started to say to myself, you're here because you deserve to be here. You're not here because somebody favored you, which is great, because that does happen too. But you worked, in 6 years, you've worked at the company. You've done this. You're 20 years in the game. You're not a newbie on the block. Like, you've invested, you've learned. So that was one of the biggest ones for me. The other one was feeling like I had to be all things to all people all the time. Yeah. And so what I mean by that is, I'm a great person, but not everybody's going to like me.
Yeah.
They're not going to like my leadership style. They're not going to like the fact that I got a gap in my teeth. They're not going to like the fact that I talk too much. They're not going to like the fact, they're just not going to like it. And so trying to accommodate everybody so that everybody feels comfortable and they feel like I'm like them. No, I'm Joy, and you're going to either gravitate to my shine or you're not. And if you're not, that's okay, as long as we can get the work done. Now, we can't get the work done. That's a different conversation.
Yes.
But ultimately, I don't have to prove that, hey, I'm just like you. I want you to see who I am. And in my truth, you understand that I'm okay. And you understand that I want to work with you. So I spend a lot of time trying to make people feel comfortable with me instead of just being comfortable in myself. And I think the last thing was that I felt like I owed people who helped me along the way. So I spent a lot of time kind of trying to make other people feel really good about themselves when they were, you weren't. So I spent a lot of time feeling like I owed people. And what I realized is ultimately I am where I am because God has placed me in this position. And, I'm a spiritual woman. Bible says your gifts will make room for you and bring you before great men. So you didn't appoint me. You didn't anoint me. When I was born, this is what God decided was going to be my journey. So I don't owe you anything, other than hey, thank you, and slide over a little bit so I can sit next to you. I don't really owe you anything. So I released that guilt of feeling like, okay, you did something for me. No, you didn't. You were the vessel, but you didn't. And so once I started recognizing those things, I started to walk in authority more. And when you didn't like me or you felt like I owed you something, I felt comfortable saying, well, no, I don't, or not having to go along to get along anymore. Not having to play those games because I walked in my truth.
Right. I do have a question, but I have a follow-up to what you just said, because those are some of the things, and I think Ayana said in the comments, and I also see as a recruiter, sometimes like what you did and how you recognize those things to say, hey, I am a good leader. Hey, I may not be your cup of tea, but I've been placed here for a reason. Do you think that women have a harder time with that and saying, hey, I am up here. I do know all of this. I am qualified. Do you think that women have more of an issue with ascending into leadership because of maybe those thoughts over men?
I think that does play a part. I think as women, we've been taught to do all the other things. We're wives, we're mothers, we're, when you think about a nurse, when you think about a secretary. So psychologically, we've been ingrained in being in certain roles. So then when that box expands and now they're male nurses, or now they're male secretaries or virtual assistants, and now they're female CEOs, that's new to us as a culture because we've been taught to be everything and do all these other things and not really spend time on ourselves or on our careers. So as we start to grow and start to matriculate into different responsibilities, for some of us, that's hard because it's like, and then we are also taught that we have to choose. It's hard to be a wife, of 100% wife, 100% mother, 100% daughter, 100% executive, 100% leader, It's hard for us to do that. And we're taught we have to choose.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I think as women, it's a battle because I don't want to feel guilty because I wasn't at my child's soccer game. Or I don't want to feel guilty because my husband doesn't have to order takeout tonight, whereas for me, that's been the life. They've been absent and it's been allowed. And so now as women, as we start to take these different positions, we have to just check ourselves that, no, it is our time. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not a bad mother because I don't make every dance recital, and as long as I'm having a conversation with my family and my family is supporting me, then it's not abandonment or it's not any psychological guilt that I need to put on myself. But I think as women, we do. And so we tend to play the game. We tend to operate in a different space so that we feel comfortable and people feel comfortable with us instead of just acknowledging, no, I deserve a seat at the table. I'm just as qualified, probably more.
Right.
I deserve to be here. And because I deserve to be here, then I want the same respect. And so I think as women continue to achieve, we just have to put that in balance and remember, hey, listen, I'm at the table because I earned this position. It wasn't handed. In some situations it was handed, but for the most part, when you get to the leadership that you want to be, you earned it. You're good enough. You're good enough. You did the work. You put in the time. You have the education. You have the favor. You have those things. So it's your season, and that's it.
Great answer, Joy. So, we might have some people in our audience that are like, okay, I'm in this position and my goal is to be a leader, to be an executive, to be in charge, right?
Mhm.
So what are some steps or personal professional development things or steps they should take to get to that level?
So the first thing I would say is identify why you want to be in that position. Because if your heart is not in it and you're not doing it for the right reason, you're going to fail, hands down. You may have a position, you may become this executive, you may become all of those things, but you're going to wreak havoc along the way. You're going to damage relationships along the way. People are going to hate working for you. They're going to hate coming to work. You're not going to be successful. So the first thing I would say is identify why you want to do it. And then once you identify it, identify what you're good at. Because I like one of the books that I love is Strength Finders with Gallup. And I like it because it says, don't spend time doing the things you know you're not good at. Like, and a good leader recognizes their weaknesses and then finds people who can support those things. So if you know you're not good at it, then we're told to start new stuff. I mean, really, like you can get better, but you're not going to be 100% in everything. So identify what your strengths are and then leverage those. So I definitely believe in finding a coach. I definitely believe that you need to have a coach. I think you need to have someone who's holding you accountable for your development, because just because you've become a leader doesn't mean you stop learning.
Right.
And a lot of times leaders get to the point where now they have the position and they forget that there's still more growing for you to do. So I definitely recommend finding an accountability coach, finding a coach, someone who you feel comfortable sharing your vulnerabilities with, because sometimes in leadership roles, you're not in a position where you can really say, I don't know, or you feel you can't. So you suffocate in this space of not really being developed, and it starts to show over time. So I would definitely say, find you a coach, find you some classes. There are a ton of resources out there. Speaking of Joye is one of them. You want to find like-minded individuals who you can work with, who are going to push you to your greatness and push you to be a better leader. Just because you've sat in the seat doesn't mean that that's it. There's so much more. And this is where legacy comes in, because the truth of the matter is the goal as a leader is to leave a legacy. If when you leave, the organization dies, your team dies, the spirit dies, you were not an effective leader. So if there's nobody who can carry on the torch and even make it better, if when you go, it's all done, you have missed your opportunity to really raise up a generation after you who can keep the ball going, who can keep the organization moving in the right direction. So I believe it, and I have an acronym for legacy. Legacy is about what lessons did they learn from you? Sorry, I got something beeping in my house. Sorry. What legacy did they learn from you? What experiences did they share with you? So, and not personal experiences, but just really like what happened in going and journeying with you. What goals did you help them reach? What attributes did you bring out with them? And then, really kind of what characteristics did you display and did you bring to them? And then what did your results yield? Based on that, that's what a legacy is. And if you can't answer those questions, you've not been an effective leader. So
exactly. I think a lot of leaders are disconnected with human behaviors. I think a lot of leaders focus on operations, or they're used to focusing on operations as an individual contributor. And so when they become a leader or a manager, they're asked to connect with people and they don't know how to do it.
Absolutely.
One day I was talking to my counselor, and I'm not embarrassed because I wear that as a badge of honor for my mental health. I do counseling.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I was just telling her about my observations about leadership, because I'm in human resources and I've seen bad leaders, poor leaders wreak havoc on employee culture, employees' mental health, people taking medication because they're scared and anxious to go to work in the morning, in the parking lot crying, so many things. And it's such a disconnect for some leaders to have empathy for the people that are reporting to them. And I was saying that I feel like in a manager or leader's toolkit should be some sort of psychology class or human behaviors class. I even had a leader say to me, like face to face, like, I don't have tissues in my office. just so it prevents people from crying
It doesn't
in front
prevent
of me.
crying.
They don't want people, so
Right,
they want to discourage people from crying in their office.
Right.
That's what they said. And I was like, whoa, what are we doing here? Like, okay. I don't think people make the connection that you are managing people that are whole people.
Right.
They have stuff going on at home. They have kids. They have a husband or a wife or a partner. It's just so much. It's so much stuff going on in the world today. Society, you know, we have social unrest. We have COVID, and it's just a lot. And if leaders can't get that, and you still have to work for them, it's that pressure.
Right.
And you almost feel like you're going to explode because you don't even have an understanding boss. They won't even listen to you. So what do you think about having leaders take certain courses to encourage them to have empathy and to learn how to connect with the people that they are leading?
So I think that's great. I think the only challenge with that is wisdom is knowledge applied. So you can take all the classes, but if you are a detached person and you're not a person of empathy and integrity, it doesn't matter how many psychology classes you take. You're still going to treat people like garbage. That's just the unfortunate part of society. And if you feel as a leader that I've arrived and I deserve to be here, there's an arrogance in you that it doesn't really matter how you feel. And I'll tell you, I've been in that situation where I've had to walk and go get in my car because I'm so emotionally drained or so hurt or feel so betrayed by my leaders. And it's a very, very tough place to be in. And it's hard to understand because it's like, okay, now, sir, ma'am, you're my boss. You should know what I'm experiencing. But I think we live in a society of people who are afraid to engage. So I don't even think it's about leadership anymore. I think it's just about connecting on a human level. So like even now, we all are experiencing COVID. Those are facts. However, we are experiencing them, this is something that every single one of us is going through. So that's a human thing. That's a human thing. That's a human. And as a leader, it's my responsibility to be a human.
Right.
So even if I don't have any children, I don't understand why you want to work from home. I'm a human. And as a human, I recognize that you're a parent. And as a parent, you're concerned about the safety and health of your children. That's me being a human. And I think that even if we took classes and we taught those things, some people just aren't going to be that. And I think that's the unfortunate part about leadership is people are being promoted because they're able to do a job. And it's operational. And nobody's going back to say, okay, well, listen, you were able to do this job, but we've noticed that you're not a great people person. But we don't promote people for people. We promote managers for business, for skill. So that's what the resume is. The resume is a list of your skills. They don't ask how many people you have coached and developed on your. I mean, that's a nice question that goes in the interview, right? Somewhere in the interview, it's like, well, that's about the time that you had to coach an employee who was doing bad, and how did you fix it? Because we're still back to what happens and how we meet the bottom line. So I think that it's really up to those who are promoting leaders to change what you're looking for, to change what you are creating as the definition of a leader. So for me, leadership is about leading people. It's about influence. And if you can't do that, I don't care how great you are, because nobody's going to work for people they don't like. People work for people.
Right.
And if they're not motivated and encouraged and don't feel like they're supported, they're going to come to work every day, but they're going to be unhappy.
Right.
Your Glassdoor review is going to be horrible.
Right.
And that's just what the world is, you know?
Yeah,
and
it's well known that people lead their managers. They don't leave companies, they lead their manager.
Yes. And people will stay with the managers and stay on a job for people that they love and support. And they have an opportunity to do more and to be more and to have more, but they really work for this person. And as long as you're doing that, it makes going to work is a lot. Already.
It is.
The stress of just going to work is a lot. But to know that I'm going to a place where I feel supported and I feel encouraged and it's not forced, that makes all the difference in the world. So when I have a manager who really is invested in me, and that's one of the things I've always tried to be as a leader and as a manager. And I think sometimes we use those words interchangeably, but they're totally different words, because you don't have to lead. You don't have to be in a position to be a leader. And a lot of people think that's what it is. So now that I'm the C whatever, I'm now a leader. No, you're just the chief executive officer. You're just the chief whatever. You're just the VP of this. That doesn't make you a leader.
Right.
You have a position, and position and purpose are totally different. So if you've got the position, it's now your responsibility to use your position for purpose. And that's to really develop, and that's to really coach. If you've not done that, yeah, you'll make the company money, but you don't have a legacy. And as soon as you're finished, somebody will come in and do the exact same thing that you've been doing. So that lets you know that you really weren't a leader. You were just a person who did the job and got promoted because you did the job. So
I want to share what Demetria said. She said, I share with the people I lead. I can love you and have compassion, but I can't remove accountability. Absolutely. And that's being honest and transparent for me. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we have to be accountable. I mean, accountability is important in life in general. Like, we teach our children to be accountable. We teach our children, if you broke it, say you broke it. If you did it, say you did it. But then as we become adults, we don't want to do that anymore. And we don't want people to expose us because we feel like being accountable also displays weakness. Well, it does. If I didn't do it right, I own that. But I should be allowed to make mistakes. I should be allowed to say, this is what I did, because we'll take credit for what's good. Yes. Yeah, listen, my resume is full of stuff I did great.
Oh, yeah.
We do. That's what we do. We're going to tout the things that are great. But how many times has somebody said, well, what didn't you do? What failed? And we don't talk about that. So as leaders, when you get to certain positions, you don't want to talk about the road to get there. You don't want to talk about how hard it was to get there. You want to say, look, I did this, I'm here. And so we forget that we've got to be accountable, and not just accountable to our peers, but accountable to those below us. Accountable to other people. We're not just accountable to the people in the room. If I'm a leader, I'm accountable to every single, like Ellen, you're accountable. You have to be accountable to every single person who walked into your studio who was in a toxic environment.
Yes.
Okay, no, we get it. You may not have known. You did, but now you say, now that I know, what are you going to do about it? Because if you know and you're not doing anything about it, then I really have issues, because now you're really not the leader that I thought you were, because now it's saying, hey, that was never my intention. Now that I'm made aware, I have a responsibility to change the experience of the people who've come in this place. And if you're not doing that, I don't call you a leader.
Right. And you talked about motivation and motivating employees and things like that. For me as a manager, I do like the people that I hire, the people that are direct reports to me, to be self-motivated. But I do think that as a manager or as a leader, there is some sort of intrinsic motivation that you should provide your staff. So what are some levels of motivation or motivational techniques that you have used with your teams or the people that you've led, Joye?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things is I spend a lot of time individually with people, because everybody's motivation is different.
Yeah.
And you need to be mindful of that. And it's really hard if you're leading a large number of people, which is where you need to get some team leads or some supervisors so that you can have some direct reports that aren't 50 people. But ideally, you need to know what motivates your people. So I've led people who are motivated by money. So if I know that, then rewards and recognition, financial, are going to be good for them. If you're a recognition person, a shout out, a high five, a great job is important. So I spend time getting to know the people. And once I get to know them, I ask them, hey, what do you need from me? Because I want to meet you where you are, and I want to make sure that I'm giving you what works for you. And then I'm always trying to educate. So I'm always trying to offer some advice. I'm always trying to offer some resources. I believe in development. I believe in being a student. So I'm going to do all I can. And then I'm going to say, here's where I stop and here's where you go. So I'm also encouraging you to be better. Be better than me. I'm a great speaker. I'm a great manager, but I want you to be a better manager. I want your employees to say, oh, not that Joye was really good, but that you were good. And I'm going to invest in you. And so I believe in, joining networks. I believe in joining organizations. I believe in those things. I believe in finding small groups that you can be a part of, because joining these bigger organizations don't really do much for you unless you're really going to be invested in it. Right. And then I also believe the biggest motivating factor is trust. So as a manager, I want my employees to know that I trust them. So I'm going to give you the freedom to make decisions on your own. I'm going to give you the freedom to make mistakes. And I'm going to be your advocate. So if you make a mistake, I'm not going to say, ooh, baby, listen. That was all Camille. She did that. Yeah, I can't believe. No, I'm going to acknowledge that I gave you the ability to make the mistake. Now we're going to learn from it and we're going to fix it. But I think that's the best way you can motivate people is to say, hey, listen, let me help you. And we're going to grow together. So I'm going to give you the tools that I have, but then I expect that you're going to take those tools, brand them, and make them your own. So I'm going to give you the space to be who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that motivation, a lot of one of the mottos in Speaking of Joy is inspiration is just the beginning, because people can be inspired all day.
Right.
That's easy. We all hear a song, hear a sermon, read an article, and we're like, yes, honey. And we start moving. But the truth of the matter is, what's next? So I can inspire you all day, but now I got to inspire you and encourage you and support you. So I believe most of the time, the reason people aren't really successful is they don't have a support system, or they don't know they do. So the way I motivate people is to say, hey, listen, you can be great, but let's be great together. So let me help you be great. What does greatness look like for you? Okay, let's do it. I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to give you all I got so that you can be there. And that's what Speaking of Joy is all about. Everybody has a different goal. So how do I help you reach your goal? Because for me, my goal is for you to be successful. And if you're successful, then I'm comfortable, I'm happy, and I feel like I've invested. So motivation is really something that people have to have. And I'm just going to talk you through it. I want to know what it is. What makes you tick? Because once I know that, I can identify ways to support you and help you.
We have a comment from our audience. Sean BP said, I spent a lot of years worrying about my work and not my people. Once I started taking care of my people, all our work lives changed. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And companies will have you focused on work because most companies are production driven. It's all about results. It's all about the bottom line. People, you don't get a lot of reviews on the soft skills. On, like, okay, prime example, you get reviews on retention, but that's only because too many people have walked out the door. So it's still a number thing. It's not really saying, how did you retain the people?
Right.
Well, how did this person was a troubled employee and they've gone from being at the bottom at the top now. So how did you do that? Nobody's asking those questions.
Right.
But a good leader recognizes that's important. So my team may not be super productive, but I've got people who are committed to learning to produce. So you have to be mindful of that. And sometimes as a leader, that's a battle you have to fight. Hey, I've got numbers I got to hit. How do I hit those numbers? Okay, I got to get them. I got to get them. But at the same time, I've got to have people who want to do the work and who want to do it. So I'm going to invest. I'm going to spend more time. I'm going to do the work too. It's nothing for me to say, okay, well, listen, you need me to train a class? Okay, well, give me the material. Give me 5 minutes. Let me make sure at least I know start to finish and let me do it, because that makes it easier for people to follow when they feel like, okay, you're in this with me. And although we have goals, we have production we've got to do, we're still very committed to the process together. That makes people feel more comfortable.
Right. I have one more question to follow up. Well, not a follow-up, but I was thinking about this because, I've been in this situation before. But have you ever experienced helicopter leadership? Let's say you're managing a team or a person, right? And you have a manager over you, and ultimately them and their upwards reporting into big leadership is the final say. But you're trying to manage your direct report, but your final say is not the final.
Yeah.
So how do you? Like you can say something, but guidance. But wait until we hear from the big manager. Absolutely. So how do you handle that?
So for me, well, I think it's two places you have to manage. So you manage down, and you have to manage up. So in managing down, I will tell people, listen, and I'm gonna be honest, like in this, probably to a fault, but I'll sit in the room with people and be like, listen, and y'all know the truth is I would love for this to be what it's going to be.
Yes.
But you know how this process is going to work. So what I ask people to do in that situation is give me all the information I need, because I'm willing to go to bat. That's just who I am. I'm willing to go to bat. I'm willing to stand in front of anybody. Like, I don't agree with that. I'm not comfortable. I'm the one I'm the squeaky wheel sometimes, almost to a fault. So when I'm working with the people who I need to take things up to, when I'm working with the team, I'm like, hey guys, the more you equip me, the better I can advocate. Now, Can't make any promises, but I can advocate. And then when I get to the leadership team, it's like, hey guys, I realize that you may not be aware, because a lot of times I think it's a lack of awareness of what's needed, because there's so many levels removed that they don't realize, hey, putting bananas in the break room really makes people happy. We don't need bananas, they can bring their own. Well, yeah, but so it's really just showing that, and then asking people to, and I'll challenge people to remember when, hey,
Yes.
I realize you're not comfortable. I realize this doesn't make sense to you, but this is something that if you gave this much, the win would be so great. So challenging people, and then recognizing when I know that it's not going to go anywhere. So I also got to be honest with people, like, listen, that's a really great idea, but that's not a battle that we can fight at this time. Right. You got to know when. You got to know when you can go to war. You got to know when you just got to make peace. And then I'm a different breed, because like I said, I'll go. I have no problem going, and probably to a fault, and probably why I've had some great jobs and some not so great jobs, because I'm the one who'll go. I'm the one who'll say
yes.
Help, I'm quick to, so what I hear you saying is, use those real therapy words, well, help me understand how, so I'll do those things so that people will be able to respond. And then if I have to go back with a different answer, I want to be able to tell the folks that I have to go back to why. And it can't just be because I said so, or because, well, you know how to manage though, you know how leadership is. That's not good enough for me. Because if I'm going to be the ally, or I'm going to be the advocate, whichever position I have to play, I've got to be equipped with the information. So yeah, I believe that, we as leaders have to know that it's okay for us to challenge the authority. And a lot of times I think we're taught that that's not okay,
Right. People are afraid.
Yeah, this manager has the final say. If you challenge that, your job is in jeopardy. Well, you know what? I'm okay with that. I mean, now let's be clear. You gotta have a job, gotta have kids. If you got responsibilities, use wisdom in how you do it, but don't be silenced to the point where you're no longer effective. Because if you're no longer effective and you're silenced, you're going to be unemployed one way or the other.
And I just want to insert, if you're in a toxic environment and it's not good for your mental health, and you've gone to your leader, you've gone to their leader, and you've explained how working for this person is making you feel, working for this person is changing your life outside of work, it's okay to walk away.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to apply for other jobs. It's really okay, because I find that a lot of people are loyal just because of a paycheck. They're not loyal to the company. They're not loyal to their manager because of a toxic environment. And they feel like, well, I don't have any other choices. You always have a choice. You always have a choice. So you can always apply for other jobs. You can always update your LinkedIn, update your resume, network, always be open to a conversation from other people. And when I want to switch gears and talk about real quickly about span of control. In HR, we talk about span of control. We talk about the leaders that have, we don't want them to have more than 7 people reporting to them, or more than 10 people. What are your feelings about span of control? Is there a number that's too high for leaders to have of an amount of people reporting to them?
I don't think so. I think it's about what the leaders can manage. There are some leaders who have a number, 15 direct reports, and they're able to give each person the level of concern and support they need. So what I think about, I have a doctor who I don't have to see her often, it's an annual exam. But when I walk in the door every year, it's like I just left yesterday. I don't know what she does. I don't know if she writes anything down. I don't know. But she's able to dial in to ask me questions about my family, my children, my husband, my mom, everything. And when I leave, now, I'm not her only patient. Lord, I hope I'm not her only patient. But she's capable of doing it. So I think it's all about what the managers and what the leaders are capable of doing. If they're able to manage 15 to 20 people and every person feels special and heard, and they're still able to be accountable, then let them lead, because you can split those 20 people amongst 2. And guess what happens? You got a really horrible manager because you didn't want 20 people. So as a result, now you've got 10 people who are doing well, and you've got 10 who absolutely hate their job. And what's going to wind up happening is either you're going to lose the team, or you're going to find yourself in a situation where you're going to have that manager taking over the responsibility anyway. So I believe it's all about saying, hey, we want to give you more responsibility. How can we do that? Do you feel that you're comfortable with taking on another 2 to 3 people? And if they say yes, then give it, and then observe and say, okay, well, they're doing really good with this 10 people. Okay, well, what if we were to give you 2 more? How would you feel about that? And then starting to look at what responsibilities you're giving those leaders that they can actually delegate down so that they have more time to spend with their direct report. So I don't think there's a number. I don't think you should take advantage of great leaders either. So I think find a good leader. You shouldn't say, okay, well, I know they're good, so we just gonna keep sending everybody their way. But that's not gonna work either. But I think
and people do that. Yes.
And they do. And people, because in my job, people are like, oh, I really want to work for you. No. And it was more because I'm like, I know you got problems, and I'm working real good with these folk I got right here, and you might throw off this whole mix. But at the same time, I think that if you are managing a group of people and you're doing it well, people notice that. And people are going to gravitate. So I think to say this is the limit should only be decided based on what that person is capable of doing. Because some leaders may decide, I really want more people. I want more challenge. I want more opportunities to develop. Right. But if you say I can't have that, then that puts a damper on their ability to grow too. So
yeah.
Well, I want to just pause for a second and give a shout out to our audience, the people that have been interacting in the chat. Sean, Ayana, Crystal, Demetrius, Crystal Garcia, Nina, Sabrina, and I think that's it. And all of you that may not have a name because you don't have a Facebook page. Thank you so much for staying on here and listening to us and Joye. Isn't she lovely? I love it. And I have to say that I'm proud of me and Camille, because this is usually a subject that we're truly passionate about, and that we get the beads of sweat and the
I have beads of sweat.
Okay. Well, we really, our voice rises because we really are passionate about having good leaders. We really think a lot of organizations do it wrong. And there's a lot of bad leaders out here contributing to the, mental health, the unhealth of people in the world. And so we thought this conversation was very necessary, and we just want to thank our audience for being here. Camille, what are some last questions that we have for Joye?
So we titled this this session kind of leaving a legacy with your leadership. So what does that entail, Joye? Leaving a legacy with your leadership?
I think it really boils down to what happens when you're gone. I think people want to build a legacy when they're there, which is great, but you're there. So nobody's going to say you were great or you suck. They're just going to keep going with what you're doing. I think that legacy is more, once you're gone, what are people saying about you? How have you touched their lives? How have you inspired them? And legacy is that. It's like planting a seed, and I may not see it grow, but I've planted the seed, and I know that one day it will. So as a good leader, I want to invest those things in people. I want to invest positivity. I want to invest confidence in people. I want to invest development and education, so that when it's all said and done, they can actually say, I'm better because my path crossed Joye. So leadership is just a vehicle that's used. I mean, I could have influence. You could have influence. Carla, you can have influence. You don't have to have the position. So it's really, leadership is what people, it's the word. It's what people strive to have. And people treat it like a destination. But the truth is, are you better because you've met me?
Yes.
Are you a better person? Are you a better employee? Are you a better, widget spinner? Whatever you're doing, are you better? And it doesn't have to be production based. It's, are you more tolerant? Are you more patient? Are you more understanding? Whatever that is, if when I have come into your life and I've exited because the position now has changed or I'm no longer employed, if you can remember something that I said, if you can remember how to resolve a conflict because you've watched me do it, if you're more accountable, then I've done my job as a leader. And when my time is up, my time is going to be up. But the lessons that I taught should still be there. So for me, that's what leadership legacy is about. It's about, how did I impact your life while I was with you? And if that's not there, then I made a company a whole lot of money.
Right.
Right. And I want you, because Joye, you're so good. You are so good. And I've been a manager for a while, but I'm just like convicted because I'm assessing myself as you're talking. And there's so many things that I need to improve upon. And that's a part of being a leader too. Recognizing that you have things that you need to work on. You haven't arrived.
Right.
There are always things that you can improve upon. Right. So I really appreciate that. And, you know, I know that you have a leadership toolkit.
I do.
Toolkit. I want you to show the audience what is in your toolkit and how do you use it and all those things.
So one of the biggest things that I'm working on and that I've started is called the First Aid Toolkit for Leaders. What it is it's a program that's designed to teach you leadership through a first aid kit. So ergo, the First Aid Toolkit.
So cute. I love it.
Toolkit, and it is an actual first aid kit. So it's got different things in here, and I can't give too much away. You got to take the course, but let me tell you what happens. Essentially, what we do is with Speaking of Joye, we take the first aid kit and we break it into segments. And each segment of the first aid kit teaches you a principle about leadership. So there are 4 areas of leadership that we talk about, and we use everything from the gloves to the alcohol prep pads. And I'll give you an example. So one of the things that I tell people a lot about is I talk about tweezers. And tweezers, everybody's familiar. We use them one way or another, right? We pluck eyebrows, we get out splinters, we pull out hair, whatever we do with tweezers. And what I tell people is, as a leader, you've got to know when you need to be a tweezer. So what does that mean? It means that there are times that I've got to be delicate with my team. So I've got to know when I need to have precision, because the thing about a tweezer is precision. So I got to know when I need to be precise. I've got to know when I can't do the sandwich method where I tell you something good, tell you something bad, tell you something good. I've got to know when I need to be delicate. I've got to know when I need to pull real fast. So I've got to know, because one thing about a tweezer, once you get it, you can yank it out. But I've got to know that now I've left a hole. So what am I going to do to cover that hole? How is that going to be exposed? So that's the purpose of understanding how leadership works. So speakingofjoye.com is where you can go to get all the information about the First Aid Toolkit for Leaders. And it's really just a practical way to understand leadership. And it's something that all of us can relate to. And I mean, I offer, we offer courses on diversity. Like my diversity course that I'm doing now is called Diversity is More Than Inclusion, because that's what everybody's saying, diversity, inclusion. But what does that really look like? So the goal with Speaking of Joye is to show you practical application methods so that you can use them. And it's things that happen every day that will make you mindful on a very regular basis. So now you're going to think about tweezers totally different. So you'll be like, every time you pull that tweezer, you're like, I got to think about who do I need to have a tweezer conversation with? A conversation where it's more delicate and that I understand and I'm going to be more cautious and I'm going to enter it differently. Whereas I may have another rip off the Band-Aid conversation where I'm not really concerned about what happens. Listen, it's going to hurt for a little bit, but it's time for it. So it's all of those types of things. And so that's what the First Aid Toolkit is. It's designed to take the aspects of the toolkit and give you some tools and resources out of the toolkit that will help you be a better manager, a better leader.
That is amazing.
And Joye is helping people. We have Crystal on here that says, I'm really enjoying Joye in this conversation. As I've recently taken on a new leadership position, I am working towards building my team and having a positive impact on my organization and my employees. Yes, Crystal.
And I will tell you, if there's anything, if you have questions, please reach out to me. I'm so passionate about this that I want to help you. I want to help you be the best leader you can be. And what I would create for each individual is a custom plan. So no plan will look the same because we're all different. We all have a different team. We all have a different goal. And so my goal is to sit with you and say, okay, what do you want to be? So Crystal, you want to be a better leader? How do you define that? What does it look like to you? What type of people do you have on your team so that we can talk about how to resolve conflict, how to motivate, how to encourage? So it's bigger than just saying, take this course, everybody take the same course, you all do it, and then figure out how to make it work. You got a workbook and you paid $400 and now you're going to be the greatest leader ever. And then you go back to your job and it's like, but they didn't talk about that. So my goal is to be your partner and to journey with you so that when you get to the point where you say, you know what, I think this is where I am, this is what I want to be, then we can celebrate together, because that's the goal, is to celebrate your leadership so that when you leave, you've left the legacy that you want to leave.
This has been so amazing, Joye. I feel like we literally ourselves, me and Carla and our audience just got a free coaching session with you. Like literally, we just got a free coaching session with you, and that is what an honor. Literally, what an honor.
And I appreciate you, ladies, for just doing this, because nobody's talking HR in such a way that people can relate.
Yeah.
It's stuffy. It's trust me. Listen, kudos to you, because all that stuff behind your name, the Sherms and the P's and the C's, it's a people thing, and not everybody's capable. And a lot of people have HR, but they don't have human in the resources part.
Exactly.
So the fact that you ladies are bringing the human aspect, and you're doing more than just talking HR, you're talking fashion, that's the human aspect of employees, and the fact that you're doing that is awesome. So thank you, ladies, so much for allowing me to be in the salon today. It has been an absolute joy. So I really appreciate it.
Well, we want to thank everyone. And like Joye mentioned, if you want a corporate session with your organization, or if you want an individual based plan, go to speakingofjoye.com. Follow her on Instagram at Speaking of Joye.
Yes.
This will be available by podcast. So if you ever need to refer back to it, it's on Google, Apple, Anchor, Spotify, wherever you can listen to podcasts. We just really want to thank you, Joye.
Thank you, lady. Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it so much. And we want to thank our audience. Thank you for following the Career Salon and supporting us. And we hope you all have a great evening.
All righty. Thank you all so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.